So after meeting with the oncologist, he made the recommendation to do 8 months chemo, 8 months radiation. After listening to him, and we actually toured the facility. I sat there for a long time watching people go in and out for treatment. I was there long enough to see people come in smiling and not leave smiling. So that left a really big impression on me. And I looked at my husband and I said, I don't know that I can do this.
All right, I might as well say at the beginning, we're not offering medical advice for anyone.
No, definitely
so no
not.
one should take this. We're not doctors. We're not offering medical advice. We're just talking stories. And I feel like your story is extraordinary. I've known you for
10 years.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this story about you until a colleague of ours came down with breast cancer, stage 3. And she went the more conventional route of treatment. And through that, you mentioned your own story. And that's why we're talking. Because I feel like your story was interesting and phenomenal. And that's what we're going to talk about.
Yes.
So let's start at the beginning. How old were you when you were diagnosed with cancer?
I was, now let me think. It was 2004. So I was, and I'm 63 now, so.
20 years ago.
Yes.
So 43.
43, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, to think, because I had other issues before that, so.
And no family history. Tell me about that. No family history of breast cancer.
Not breast cancer, no. Grandfather was the only one that had cancer, and it was lung cancer. And nothing with my father's side, nothing with my mother's, not even aunts, come to think of it, on either side. No.
And a little history. You're from?
I'm from Guam, born in California, raised on Guam, to a father who served in the Navy and then was a civil service employee for years. My mother was a teacher. I'm the youngest of 6 girls, and I have one brother under me. So, you know, the saying of shit rolls downhill, it sure does. Because it all rolled down to me with everything.
So give me the backstory. How did you find out you had cancer?
Regular checkup, actually went in for my annual exam with my OBGYN gynecologist. It was just a routine mammogram, and everything was at the examination and after the mammogram. You know how they never tell you anything right there.
Did you suspect anything?
No,
she didn't say anything. Was it a woman that did it, or
it was a female that did the mammogram, and then I had not seen the doctor yet, my gynecologist yet, and then it wasn't until my actual appointment with her, and that's when I had already had the mammogram, and then that's my appointment with her. I got the results of the mammogram, which were fine. They found nothing.
Oh, nothing.
Nothing. No. But then I brought to her attention that farther up on the left side of my breast, which was not an area that your mammogram would actually test and cover, you know. I brought that to her attention, and then when she checked it, she did show concern. And then that's when we talked about it. She felt it, and she gave me the options. We can do a biopsy, or we can go in and take it out. And I said, well, you're already going in, so let's just take it out. And so after about 2 weeks, and they got the results, she called. I did not meet her again. She called to let me know that it was cancerous. Aggressive carcinoma in situ, stage 1, very early, which was a relief right there that it was very early.
Was it big?
It was actually probably the tip of my pinky, so maybe about
pretty small.
Yeah,
right?
Very
I
small.
would guess,
yes,
yeah.
But still, as small as it was, it sure left that. I mean, to feel what I felt being so small, and so when she gave me the results, I told her, and she started to tell me the size and what they found, what the pathologist found. I did ask for a second opinion, and so she said we can send it to another pathology, and I said that's what I want. And so I did go through the second opinion, and the results came back the same. So from there, we discussed the options, what surgeries could be done as far as mastectomy versus lumpectomy, the removal of lymph nodes, depending on what the nuclear test find when they run that. And so we scheduled all that. She scheduled an appointment with me with one of the actually top nation oncologists at St. Mark's Hospital here in Utah. And
was he a surgeon or what was he?
He wasn't
Just straight oncologist.
Just straight oncologist,
Right.
yeah. One at the top in his field. And so my husband and I met with him after he reviewed the results and everything. The recommendations were we recommend double mastectomy, even though it was only up and not actually in my breast.
Because of how aggressive it was?
Because of the aggressiveness of it.
Okay.
And also because of my history of a lot of fibroid tumors in my breast in general. So that was one thing. That was actually one of the things that that was my concern going into my mammogram and into my appointment with my gynecologist, because I could feel the fibroid tumors.
Yeah.
And when I had my mammogram, she said they're just fibroid tumors, which was a relief to me until I brought the attention of the other little thing. So after meeting with the oncologist, we'll go back to him. He made the recommendation to do 8 months chemo, 8 months radiation. And so, after listening to him and talking to the nutritionist, and we actually toured the facility, the Utah Cancer Facility that was right there by St. Mark's. I sat there for a long time watching people go in and out, for treatment, in and out the door. And I was there long enough to see people come in smiling and not leave smiling. So that left a really big impression on me, and I looked at my husband and I said, I don't know that I can do this, and this is prior to walking into the room to meet the oncologist. And he goes, well, whatever you decide, I'll support you, whatever you decide.
Had you started doing a bunch of research at this point? No.
This was only a week after my diagnosis.
And just give me the psychological impact of hearing that for you.
Psychologically, it put the fear of God in me. It really did. It put a fear in me where it was going to change not just my life, but my family's life, my children, my husband. Everything was gonna be an upheaval, in general. So when we actually met with the oncologist and he told me what his recommendations were, I bluntly asked him, okay, so I do this 8 months chemo. I go through the 8 months radiation. And then what, was my question to him. And he looked at me, with eyes, blank eyes kind of, and he goes, well, what do you mean, and then what? I said, then I'm cured, right? And he goes, well, we won't know that, So that left a big impression on me. I said, well, you're recommending that I do all this. I put what I really don't know anything about other than what I hear.
Right.
I put radiation in my body, which is, not something that I think is meant for the human body. Right. And so right then and there, I told him, I said, and if I decide that this is not what I want to do. And his response to me was, it is your body. You know it best. We will not abandon you. We will be here for whatever you decide to do. So that left.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yes, so that left me feeling really, really good.
So he wasn't pressuring you to do anything?
No.
Wow.
He said, this is our recommendation.
I'm surprised at that.
Yes. And the nutritionist was in the room too, and she actually made comments to the effect of, whatever you decide, we can also offer dietary, solutions and recommendations. So when we left the clinic, my husband was like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I need to really take the time. And the oncologist did say, look, we all have cancer in our body. Yours just happened to wake up. And he goes, so it's not like it developed overnight. And because it's early, you have time to make a really good, sound decision. He said, you have the time. And that was also a blessing. I wasn't a stage 3 or a 4 where they were recommending you got to do it right away,
right,
which is what a lot of people hear. So I took the time. I researched. I actually, in 2 weeks, my kids would come home, my husband would come home, and they would not bother me because I was in books. I was just sitting there.
So that was kind of pre-internet.
Oh, way pre-internet. Yes.
So you were just going old school.
Old
you
school.
You ordered books?
Going to Barnes and Noble, no Amazon.
How did you find the books?
I just would read. I was very careful. Let me make this very clear. I didn't just go whack off looking for books that were all natural, all organic, or everything. I was very careful to make sure that when I was reading the books or when I looked for the books, that there was some type or a type of a medical actual person involved in writing the book.
Right.
So, and really my time was at the recommendation books from other people that, just recommended books about cancer in general to better understand what I was dealing with, as well as just alternatives. I have to tell you that a really big proponent in my decision was Suzanne Somers, because Suzanne Somers at the time was going through it, and she did not do the chemo, but she did do the radiation. So she had a book. Her first book was called The Sexy Years. So that caught my eye really quick. And I was glued to that. And her book talked a lot about the natural hormone therapies and, her decisions and really researching. And she did the same thing, basically, when she was diagnosed. She didn't want to just go full-blown into this chemo thing. And so I was really taken by her stance on her approach on how she did it. I don't know why she decided to do the radiation, at the time, but reading that and then reading other books, I looked at a book by Dr. John Lee, which was called Breast Cancer Diagnosis, What Do I Do Next? Mm-hmm. So it was a book to really understand that. And he is a medical doctor, and it was also co-authored by two other medical doctors, and I don't remember their names, I'm sorry. And so I read, I made notes, I did everything I could possibly do. And then there still was the internet, so it just wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't as advanced.
Yeah, so I did my research on what doctors were in the United States that that were looking at alternative treatments for breast cancer versus the conventional. And
over what period of time was this? Months.
3 months.
So you just kind of were studying.
Yes, it was all research and study. When the doctor told me, when my oncologist said you have time, I took the time.
And at this point, you'd already had the surgery.
Yes, I just had the surgery in December where they removed the tumor. They removed 8 lymph nodes. They only originally thought they would need to remove 3. I had all the nuclear testing done, and I did the lumpectomy. I chose to do the lumpectomy, and I chose the lumpectomy.
But at the beginning, they didn't recommend pre the biopsy that you should have a double mastectomy.
No, it was after the biopsy.
Right.
Yes,
okay.
It was. Yeah, the oncologist recommended it when I met with him, and he already had the results from the surgeon and stuff like that. Yes. So after the 3 months of studying and researching and reading, and I wouldn't say it's 8 to 10 books that I read.
Wow.
In 2 weeks.
and let me ask you this: at this point, did you have friends who had breast cancer? Did you have a network of people that you?
No.
So you didn't know anybody?
No.
So you were flying solo out
not
there.
Close enough, yeah. Not anybody. I mean, I've heard of people, but I'm not a relationship where I could reach out to them. And I didn't. And I was just I have to say, I was so self-absorbed, really, that I didn't look. I didn't seek out it either. I was just more in my own headspace, wanting to make sure that, it's what the doctor said. I know my body, so.
Were you working at the time?
Yes, full time.
Where were you working?
I was working with a construction company here in Salt Lake City.
And your kids were how old?
My middle daughter had just started college. She was in her first year, and my youngest was in her senior year of high school.
Was it hard to maintain the work thing and study at the same time, or were you just managing that okay?
No, I managed it well. I had a really good support system from the workplace.
Okay.
They made me they said take whatever time you need. Right. So it was good.
Okay.
So that was definitely a help. And then after the research and reading what I read, I knew that I didn't want to do the chemo and radiation. I wanted quality of life. And a lot of those books spoke about people's experiences. And some of them scared me. Some of them were more positive than others, So I made the decision that I needed to research further and find someone that I could work with in the United States. I didn't want to go outside of the United States because there were many areas that you could go and outside of the United States, and it's just not something that I could afford to do at the time. And even the route that I chose was a difficult route financially, but we bit the bullet. We made sacrifices and we did that. So I ended up researching, and I came across a doctor in Reno, Nevada. His name is Dr. James Forsythe. His clinic is still open today. And he, at the time, was offering an alternative clinical trial, which was called poly-MVA. So I kind of studied on that, made contact with them. They sent me a whole bunch of material. So the MVA stands for minerals, vitamins, and amino acids, which really took an interest to me because in all the books that I read, the one thing that was recommended over and over was to have a really strong supplemental, vitamins and stuff like that. Dr. Forsythe was mentioned in one of the books, which is what caught my eye. Reno was close to home. Didn't have to go far. I didn't have to fly. I could drive. And then it was just by chance that he had that clinical study going on.
Was that stage 3? Do you know where that was in the study?
I have no idea at the time. Yeah, I don't know. So it was early on in the study. I was probably one of the first or few to start using it. And when I met with Dr. Forsythe, when I took the time, made the appointments, went and sat down with him and everything, and he studied my case, and we went over what I was already doing as far as changing my diets. I mean, with all the book reading, it was change your deodorant, no more aluminum, okay? Get the aluminum out of your deodorant. I had shower filters put on my shower heads so that we weren't showering in whatever, chemicals were coming out of the regular faucets. I didn't have a filtration system at the time, so we filtered water. I was very careful about the kind of water I drank, even when I bought bottled water. I would buy specific kinds, specific brands. Toothpaste changed, shampoo changed, shower curtains changed.
This all happened before you went to Reno?
This is before I went to Reno. So all of this was happening, yeah.
And what's Tom thinking when you're doing all this? And your girls, were they thinking you were crazy or no?
No.
They went with it.
They just went with it. They really did. Food changed. Not what we ate, just what kinds of ingredients went into how we cooked. Organic eggs, changed.
Previous to that,
yes.
not really.
No, no. I mean, you just bought the chicken, you bought the beef, and everything. Luckily, at that time, there was already a big push for more organic meats and more, organic vegetables and stuff. So if the vegetables got too expensive, then I just bought the conventional and I made sure I cleaned them well, which is another thing that I learned from the books: how to clean meat, how to clean vegetables, to make sure. And so everything changed. I mean, the household just changed with me. I mean, they just rolled with the flow,
Right.
So that's what happened. And in February of 2005, Tom and I went to Reno to meet with Dr. Forsythe. We went through the whole planning. His recommendation was, he goes, I think you'd be a really good candidate for this clinical trial. He goes, we can do chemo if you want. I don't administer it the same way that most conventional hospitals do. He does it in a real low dosage. And so I just decided, no, I didn't want to get anywhere near the chemo, at all. And then he introduced me to a different side of their clinic, which was more on the naturopathic side. He had a naturopathic doctor, and I met with her, and then she discussed the different boosters, immune boosters that they put in. She goes, while you're going through this treatment, we also do these boosters to help keep you healthy and everything. So we did that. The treatment I received, just like you would chemo, I had to have the port, and it was put in, and it was just intravenously fed. And there was an option, I have to say, to do this exact treatment orally.
Yeah.
And so I could have stayed home and done it orally, where they would just mail me the bottle of the...
And that would have been a lot cheaper,
obviously. And it would have been cheaper, but I didn't know, or I felt that intravenously just sounded better. I wanted to get it into my system as quickly as possible. So I did that. I made the decision to do the intravenous treatment, stay in Reno. Lived there for the first 3 months, and I went in daily, Monday through Friday. Was
5 days a week.
5 days a week.
And how
every
long
day.
were you in there each time?
I would say 3 to 4 hours every
Wow.
day. 3 to 4 hours. Yeah.
Is that how long it took to do the drip?
You have your waiting time.
Yeah.
And then you go in and you do your intravenous treatment, and that took about maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then you go back out and you wait again, and then you meet with the naturopathic doctor, and then she sees what your blood work is, because they did your blood work once a week, and she looked at what boosters you would need, natural boosters.
So they were adjusting it as you went along.
as we went along. Yes. So,
Were you in there by yourself? Was it like a chemo room where there were a bunch of people?
Oh no, it was like a chemo room where there was a ton
so there were
of
other people in there.
Yes, there were other people in there, but not everybody being treated for cancer.
Right.
There were different ailments. I'm not sure what. HIPAA rules, you can't discuss it. So,
how did those make you feel? Did you notice any difference physically for you?
For me,
Yeah.
You mean as far as the treatment, or as far as seeing the people?
No. As far as the treatment, like, did you feel you had more energy, or was it just kind of a net?
In the beginning, it was a. In the beginning, actually, it was more. How would I say it? Enlightening. I felt good about what was going through my body.
Mentally, you felt good.
Mentally, I felt good. Physically, I was exhausted just because of having to sit there. Just the thought of having to sit there and have that needle in you, because they had to, they would have to switch because,
Right.
when they would take blood work and
For
stuff
sure.
like that. When they removed the lymph nodes, you couldn't do it on this arm. So everything was on this arm.
Right.
If this arm didn't produce blood, then they took it from my hand. If that didn't, then they went to my foot. So,
Right.
So it's just, that was the exhausting part, was the lab stuff. And then going through the boosters, it was injections. So there was a lot of that.
What's the boosters?
It's been so long that I can't remember. I'll have to research my information. Yeah, I just off the top of my head, I
Were
don't.
those like once a week? Every
No,
so often?
they were once a week. Yes, because I met with a naturopathic doctor twice a week, and then she would recommend that we don't need to do this one today. We can do just these two. So there were different, and I think there were a total of 5 or 6 that we would alternate doing. So
at the same time, were you going out walking? Were you trying? How were you?
I was healthy.
Handling your mental health there at that time?
I was fine. I was in Reno. So, we went, dinners were typical. We were in a condo, so of course we still cooked.
You said you traded off Tom and
a friend.
Girlfriend.
Yes, she would come and stay with me when Tom had to go back to work, and then and vice versa. And so, no, we walked, we went shopping, we went to the grocery stores. We did everything normal. And I could do almost everything myself. There were things where they were more difficult only because my arms were so tired that I couldn't lift and anything. But nothing like what probably a person who's receiving chemo would.
For sure.
Yeah, it was definitely... It was definitely just like going in and getting your flu shot, I guess, and then coming out and.
Backtrack now, the oncologist, because you had a conversation on what you were going to do
with Dr. Forsythe. Yes.
Yeah, take me to that.
Dr. Forsythe recommended the poly-MVA because of the stage I was in. When we talked about the other treatments. It was my decision not to do it. It's not, and he said, I can do, I can definitely take you through that and do that. And I just said, no, I just decided I wanted to approach this head on with everything non-conventional, know. And doing that everything was out of my pocket,
No insurance covered.
No insurance. The insurance only covered the lab work and the doctor visits. That's all it covered.
So that's a big deal.
It was a big deal. It was a big decision on mine and my husband's part to do this. But we had put my health first. We couldn't put a price on my health. And that's the reason we decided. And I have to go back and tell you that when I was diagnosed, a girl that my husband and I were pretty close to that worked with him was diagnosed at the exact same time. Exact same stage. We saw the same doctors. We were in the same hospital and everything. I don't know who her oncologist was. She did decide to go the conventional route. And when she would try to work or go back to work, Tom would come back and report to me, so-and-so's doing this, and she's just not feeling well. And she would keep asking about what I was doing, and Tom would explain to her, this is what we did. And the response was always, I can't afford that. I can't afford that. And that's what really drained into me. I have to afford this. If I'm hearing that she's miserable, she's not feeling well, she's constantly going back and back, and here I was still doing what I like to do, still going out, still, working and everything. I made that decision that it wasn't that money was no object. It couldn't be an object, so yeah.
So you dipped into your savings or your retirement?
Everything, yes.
What did it cost all in? Probably.
I'd say we spent over $50,000, maybe even a little bit more within 5 months to cover all that.
And when you went back to this top oncologist here, and you told him what you were going to do.
Yes.
And what did he say to that? Tell me that story.
He said, you know what? It's your body. He goes, we will never abandon you. We still recommend that you do your regular checkups, your mammograms, your whatever, and know that we're here for you. He never pushed me. Yeah. He never pushed me to go and do the chemo and the radiation. Not once did he ever mention it. He just said, you know your body better than anyone. He goes, and I can't tell you what what you should do.
Did you see him after?
No, not after.
After your treatment?
Yeah, after my treatment, no, because Dr. Forsythe, who I was seeing, was already a full. he was actually retired Army oncologist. Yeah. Who opened his own practice after he got out of the service, the military. And there was no need. There was no need to run up another bill. So, yeah. So, no, I never did. I should have, though, probably to share my story with him. Sure. Never thought about it. But no, so it's been since 2004. I've had no recurrence. Lifestyle's still very strict. Probably not as strict as it should be. When I say my diet changed, things like bottom feeders were out of the question. So no bottom feeders. And people are like, what do you mean bottom feeders? And I said, shrimp, lobster, things like that I love.
Eating poo off the bottom of the ocean. I said,
think about what they're eating. So it doesn't mean you give it up. It just means you have it in moderation. You don't. Yeah. So that's what I did. Everything that I loved, I did in moderation. I'd have it once a month. Changed my breads. I mean, it was just the research just made me change my whole life, change my walk of life with everything. Even to the point of deodorizers in the house. Like I said, what my shower curtain is made of. Right. Things like that. The clothes that I purchased or the laundry detergent I was using. Right. It was just a big drastic change. And so far, so good, I have to say.
You said, I think you made this statement to our colleague that has cancer.
Yes.
Who went the conventional route. And I want you to explain that to me. You said two things that I thought were interesting. One is cancer doesn't like happy.
Right.
And the other one was you just have to commit. You just need to choose what's right for you and commit to it. So correct. If you're going to go the conventional route, go all in.
Right.
If you're going to do the unconventional route, go all in.
Correct.
So talk to me about, split those up and talk to me about those a little bit.
So cancer doesn't like happy, meaning the more depressed you are, the more depressed your body becomes and it overtakes you. So I made that decision that look in the mirror and look at yourself. You don't look sick. You may have cancer, but you sure don't look sick, So you need to take this and be happy about whatever decisions you make. And you need to be positive about those decisions. And I did. Everything I was surrounded by happiness. No sad movies. I mean, no, of course you can't, people die, you can't avoid that. You can't avoid sadness, but you have to take everything in stride, and every decision you make, you have to make with the attitude that it's going to be better for me. So when we made a decision to go to a movie, Mom got to choose the movie because Dad likes his action, bloody, gory movies. I said, no, it has to be happy. You don't like, what is it? Happy Feet? Too bad. We're going to go watch Happy Feet, because Happy Feet makes me happy.
Right.
My friends, I, to be honest with you, stepped away from people who were drama, got away from them, and found people that liked to do the things I do and enjoyed and loved joking around and loved the same things I did, liked to eat the same things I do. I really did that. My girls, they knew that was one of my goals, was just to have happiness around me and not be sad and have and so they changed. They changed. They changed a lot of no complaining about school. They went things head on. Little things. And then what really made it even more positive was we had our first grandchild. So that was happy. So he brought so much joy to my life. And then when you make this decision to do it this route, you can't change halfway through. You have to follow through with the whole. You have to commit. Whether you're going to do the chemo, then commit to the chemo and don't come halfway through it. And when you go into that chemo, think happy thoughts. Don't think sad thoughts about how you're going to come out. And that's one thing our coworker has said to me. She goes, that has helped me so much going into my chemo treatments. And I always think about what you said, think happy thoughts. And I really am a strong and true believer that really has helped her through this whole thing.
Oh, for sure.
Because she, the way she's handled what she's going through, I don't know that I could have. I really don't know that I could have. And so that's basically it, when you ask that question.
How has it changed your life in general, just as a person?
As a person?
You feel like it's changed you at all?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I don't take things for granted. Nothing upsets me. I don't really get upset about anything. Unless it affects me, and my family directly. But no, when somebody's unhappy about, let's say, politics, for example, the world the way it is now, I'm just like, life is too short. I just can't think that way. I can't concentrate and focus my attention on these really unimportant things in life, because they are. They're trivial and they're unimportant when there's so much more out there that you need to be worried about. So what I worry about is what kind of a world my grandkids are going to have in the future. That's what I worry about. I don't worry about my health anymore. People ask me, well, what if it comes back? I go, what do you mean, what if it comes back? Well, if you're cancer, what if it comes back? And it's different. It's stage 3 or 4. I go, well, then I deal with it. I'm happy, I said, I have to deal with it. And I'm not saying it can't come back, because I know people who have survived many, many years and it comes back. But I have to deal with it, and I may deal with it differently. It may not be the same approach, depending on what I'm told. But I do know that I'll never already give up when given a diagnosis. I have to go in it with a positive attitude that I'm going to come out of this, or whatever happens, I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to make the best quality of life that I can. Through the years, since the path that I decided to, tackle my cancer with was, I have friends who have been diagnosed with cancer. And they always say, you need to talk to my friend Edye. And so they'll come to me and they go, hey, will you talk to so-and-so? He just got a cancer diagnosis, and I really want you to speak with him. And I'll go, okay. So I did do that for maybe a couple of years. I would speak to people, and I would tell them my story, just like I'm sitting here. And the response has been every single time, I don't think I can do that. It sounds so expensive. I don't think that I could change my life like that. It's a personal choice. You have to make that personal choice. And hearing them with that kind of a response makes me not talk to people anymore. It's really sad, but I don't, because the next time I meet my friend that introduced me to their friend and I say, hey, how's so-and-so? Oh, they passed away 6 months ago. Every single time that has happened to me. And because of that, I have just made the decision that I will not talk to anybody anymore. unless I know
What does that
you
make
well.
you think? That they just couldn't?
That they had already given up before they even started. Really, that's how it makes me think. Because you're sitting in front of me. You know, I'm telling you how many years I've dealt with this. You see that I'm healthy. You see that I'm happy, but you don't want to try. You've given up before you've even tried, and so I just can't do it anymore. That makes me sad. That makes me sad to know that people have. And I'm not going to say chemo and radiation is the easy way, because there's nothing easy about it. There's nothing easy about it. But as an individual going through the treatment that I went through and making the choices that I made, I cannot comprehend and feel what a person with cancer that went through chemo and radiation feels.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I have no experience in that realm. I just don't know. So when I speak to people who have done it, I can't relate. I mean, I truly cannot relate to them, because
You didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I didn't do it. So my attitude has just been, just don't share your story anymore, because then when they go that way, I just get frustrated. So basically that's it.
I do think people who go through medical things, no matter what it is, extreme medical, are in a club.
That's
And
a good way of putting it.
Cancer's its own club.
Yes.
And if you're in the cancer club and you do the chemo, radiation, that's its own club.
It is.
If you've ever been in ICU on a ventilator, that's a club.
Correct.
And it's hard really to relate to anybody who's in that. And I feel like cancer, for me, having done a lot of work with cancer patients doing commercials over the years,
Right.
it's always struck me the weird thing about cancer is you have most people, like if you're midlife, not if you're older, I think it's a little different, but if you're midlife, you're in your career, you have a job, you have kids, you have a husband or a wife, you have this life that's going on around you, and then you have the uncertainty of cancer.
Correct.
Will I be around in a year? Will I be around in 5 years? Is the chemo going to kill me? There's so much uncertainty mixed with, and then if you go the conventional route, you get really sick.
Right.
They're just.
Then you're sick.
Yeah, then you're sick, and you're left, and you're trying to make a living, and your kids still have a life, and so
Right.
you don't want to not take away from their life, and your husband or wife have a life. So it's just this, and it's
a
always
cycle.
gnawing in the back of your head. And there's in our culture, it's not enough to disengage and say, well, I just got to focus on this. Which is what people really should do,
Right.
And it's hard to change your lifestyle. I mean,
Right. One of the things that I did run across in the research was, and it's interesting because in the books that I've read, they all had this same, they all had in some area in the book the same thing of, when you go and you see your doctors who have went through medical school and learned all these medical things, it's not that. They prescribe you a medication, and then you have something else, and they prescribe you another medication, and they do this because this is what they learned in school.
Yeah, it's what they know.
They don't get away from that to do research in other areas. They don't remove themselves from that medical world. That's just all they know.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting that in almost every single book that I read, with the exception of Suzanne Somers' book, that they made that comment that, it's not that they don't care or that it's just that's what they were taught. So that's what they do.
And they're busy doing that.
Yes. And
it's not like they have the time to look outside that.
It's
because they're up to their eyeballs
right.
in doing that.
They're
paying
not
off their loan.
Right. They're not that doctor that took a step back to write that book that I could read to make me think about my treatments and my plans. So.
Do you worry about your daughters getting breast cancer?
Yes, I did do a gene test, and they carry that gene, or I have the gene, and apparently they'll carry that gene more than likely. But they're very good about self-exams. Their mother was not. I have to tell you, it's to the point where my middle daughter, especially when she comes home, she'll do my breast exam for me because I am just finicky about it, especially after finding that first one.
You mean you don't want to actually go looking?
Nope.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Interesting.
I don't. I just have, and when I go into my exams with my doctors and they go, have you been doing your breast exams? I tell them, nope, I don't. If you find something, you just let me know and then I'll deal with it because I just have this fear, in me that there'll be something there.
Yeah.
So if there's anything I'm afraid of is finding something,
You did tell that story. Can you relay that when they found that?
Oh,
or
yes.
When you told them and your husband said, "Oh,
yes."
Yeah.
So when they discovered the lump, and then I had to go home and tell my husband that, did you feel this? Feel this? And he goes, yeah. He goes, that's the lump. He goes, yeah, that's been there. And I said to him, well, what kind of a partner are you? You're feeling that and you don't tell me that it's on you. He goes, well, I didn't think anything. I said, obviously. But yeah, so as your partners out there, when you're intimate, be their doctor too and see what you find because fortunately it was still early enough. Like I said, mammogram didn't find it. Do I still do mammograms? I do. Which is probably, interesting seeing as how it's radiation. But I personally just feel that it's such a small amount and it still gives me peace of mind. I'm not against conventional medicine. I'm not against going to my doctors and hearing what they have to say and diagnosing me and treating me. But there are things that I don't do. I don't normally take a Tylenol or an Aleve or an ibuprofen anymore. I just don't, unless it's an absolute necessity. You won't see me with doing any of that. I don't go to the over-the-counter meds. I really do a lot of alternative remedies. Even if it's just drinking green tea.
Right.
I turn to that in my hours of need for anything. But not to say that I don't have Tylenol in my house because there's always an emergency that will do a quick fix. But I definitely believe that there's more out there for people with health, and I'm hoping that going forward with whatever happens with our new administration, that more of that will come to light and people will have more options. I would definitely like to see that. It's sad that everything that I chose to do, even though I was paying for insurance every month, every payday, that I still had to use my own money for my treatment. It's sad that there's no choice of, your insurance will still pay even if you decide to go see a naturopathic doctor or a acupuncturist or whatever. It's like my original oncologist said, it's your body, you know it best. Well, if it's my body, then I should have the choice to decide what I want to put in it.
Right.
And you should pay for it since I've been paying you every month. So it's sad that we don't have those options. So I hope there are changes in some capacity, that we have more choices out there than what's being offered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think your story's inspirational.
I hope so. I hope that somebody thinks twice, especially if it's still an early onset thing. Yeah. I hope you take your time and don't let it scare you. Don't let it be your life because it doesn't have to be. Just let it be another project that you're taking on that you have to look deeper into and decide which route to go. And that's how I feel.
I think what I like about this is that you took responsibility.
Yes.
You didn't turn it over to the doctors.
Nope.
You didn't turn it over to the insurance company.
Nope.
You just decided to make a decision for yourself. Now, and it could have been a different decision.
Yes.
But
yes.
I just think the fact that you owned it.
Yes.
And you decided to make real changes in your life, to diet, or the food you bought and the things you did.
Everything that I did, and I will have to say that had my diagnosis early on been different, the doctor sat me down and said, "Well, you have this type, and you're stage 4." My decision could have been completely different.
Totally. Yep.
Completely different.
Yep.
But it wasn't.
Yep.
And when he said I had the time, I took the time. That was the difference.
Yeah.
So.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.